Hey guys, it's the Big Bad Evil GM, back here to talk about the thing I promised to talk about last time. My personal setting that I am currently building. I have not used it yet, so all of this is in the rough draft stage. This is my setting of Uphilara. Now, my inspiration for this setting is two things. Two things. I don't know why I held up one finger. Anyways, it's two things. The first, my friend wanted to build a character based off of Quincy, or not, is that the cowboy's name? The cowboy from Dracula, the novel. He wanted to base a character off of that. That characterization has changed a lot since its initial conception. Me and him have been talking about the character, but that is one of the large parts of the initial inspiration for this setting. The other part was a Tumblr post that if I can figure out how to edit, I will put in right here, that's basically talking about how you can have a samurai, a pirate, a Civil War veteran, and a Victorian-era Englishman all in a party of individuals. I thought that was funny. I used that as a small piece of inspiration for this. And then I started building the actual setting, and while I have kept that general core, it has gone off and become its own thing. So, today we're going to be talking about the generalization of the three eras of the setting. Can't really talk about the first era a whole lot because I don't currently know much about it. Yes, I know that I am the one making the setting, yada yada yada, but I haven't figured out exactly what's all happened during the first era. All I know is that I'm calling the first era the Era of Immortals, the time at which the godlike beings known as the Primarchs came into being. I also am currently under the thought process that while there are 9 currently, there used to be 13. Because, I don't know, sounds cool. But if that is the case, I also need to think of four other general concepts to base the Primarchs off of. Because currently the Primarchs are based, I'll just name them all. I haven't memorized, well, actually, for this video, because that's the type of person I am. I need to remember, at the very least, what I call my gods. Anyways, we have Telos, the Primarch of Death. We have Arki, the Primarch of Life. We have Eremos, Primarch of Destruction. Plato, Primarch of Creation. We have El Piso, the Primarch of Dreams. There's the first 5, then I have 4 more. We have Simvasi, the Primarch of Order. We have Tychos, the Primarch of Chaos. Then we have Astrophagia, the Primarch of Light. And Pina, the Primarch of Darkness. Now, the Primarchs in my setting, the different planes don't exist in the way that they do in most other D&D settings. Instead, each of the Primarchs possesses a dominion, and that dominion acts as the other planes from which the different outsiders come from. For example, fire-based outsiders and things like that would commonly come from Eremos's dominion. Now, these Primarchs used to not have dominions. They all just existed on the material plane of Uphilara. But they no longer do, due to something that happened during the first era that resulted in both the creation of the mortal races and the leaving of the immortal people, the Primarchs, from the material plane. And now, the only way they can manipulate the mortal plane is with their relics. Powerful magical items that they grant to certain individuals. Or certain individuals just fine based off of the specific Primarch. One Primarch in particular really shaped the second era. Specifically, Tychos, the Primarch of Destruction, or not Destruction, that's Eremos. Tychos, the Primarch of Chaos. He has a very unique relic known as Tarnhelm. And yes, any of you mythology buffs know exactly what that is. But it's a helmet, lets you take on any form. Within the lore of the setting, it allows you to take on any form of a creature lesser than a Primarch. Anything less than a god is what you can become. And an individual, known only now during the Third Era, which is where my game will be taking place, 1257 of the Third Era. So, during a character, character is the proper word. Nobody's played him. He's my character. He won't come up other than in story, but he is known as the Demon King, and he is the one that wielded Tarnhelm. And he conquered most of the setting with the exception of one full continent and part of another continent. The reason that full continent wasn't conquered is it hadn't even been discovered during his reign. At least, not by him. There were probably some other individuals that had discovered it, similar to how the Americas were discovered by the Vikings long before it was discovered by Christopher Columbus, and it was probably discovered long before the Vikings even got there based off of a bunch of anecdotal evidence. But, moving on from that. Now, the Demon Lord is not technically an evil individual, unless you define a conquering imperialist as an evil individual, in which case I guess he is. But he's more like someone like Nobunaga or Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great or any number of conquerors throughout history, Julius Caesar, etc., etc. And similar to Nobunaga, he took on the title of Demon King. Well, I'm actually need to look more into that on Nobunaga's end. I'm not sure if that was a thing that was given posthumously to him or if that is a thing that he had during life as an actual title. Not sure. I'll look that up later. Probably won't get back onto you about it, but I will learn myself. Anyways, he conquered a bunch of the different peoples of the setting, and the humans, dwarves, gnomes, and elves all teamed up together in order to defeat him using an artifact called Avalon, named after the place and or shield, King Arthur mythology, which has a lot of different things because a lot of different people wrote his mythology. Anyways, so they used the weapon, they used the shield, they were able to, with the noble races, the humans, the elves, the dwarves, and the gnomes, were able to defeat the Demon King, or more specifically, the people that would become their kings were able to defeat the Demon King. These 13 kings declared their peoples the noble races, and the people that had either joined the Demon King willingly or were just straight up conquered and forced to be part of his empire became known as the Demon Folk because they fought on the Demon King's side, at least at that stage of the war that those individuals were participating in. Now, the Demon Folk includes orcs, goblins, and the Beastkin races, so anything like Minotaurs or Tengu/Kenku based on the game that you play. Stuff like that. Peoples that look like animals. So, they, as so many horrible people throughout our own history, well, I'm not even going to call them horrible. The thing that they did is absolutely horrible. But in most cases, they were scared and angry people. And scared and angry people do the worst things imaginable. The lucky demon folk were treated as third-class citizens. The unlucky ones became slaves. And I understand that this is an extremely contentious topic, especially in places like America, where I am from. If you couldn't tell by my voice, I feel like I probably have a pretty consistent American accent. But anyways, no jokes. This is a bad thing, but I feel like my players can deal with the history of the setting and address it in a mature capacity without sugarcoating it or diminishing it in any way. And also in the setting, right when my players are going to be playing in, slavery will have recently been abolished in the last 2 years, because I want this to be similar to a fantasy Wild West game for the first part of what Uphilara is, and a lot of that involves the necessary requirements of adding ex-Confederate and ex-Union soldiers. I think this is a great central tension. I do think that the acts involved are horrible, but also need to be talked about. Well, and while they don't necessarily need to be talked about at my table, I do think that it is a good inducer of drama. And I also believe that other people could probably address it better than I could, but I'm still going to try my best to do it as properly as I can. So, back onto the topic. The end of the Second Era was the Demon King being defeated and all that horrible shit happening to the demon folk. After about 500 years, most species had forgotten what had happened during the war, with the exception of the elves, basically. The war was at least one generation ago for most of those species. The elves had a little more direct memory, but we're not going to talk about them at this moment. We're going to talk about the fact that at that point, during a lot of development during the setting, another continent was discovered, the continent of Andrea. A new society was built over there, and similar to the United States' own, there is a north and a south. And the north, as happened in American history, was a place of high industry, while the south was a lot, and I mean a lot, of farming. And at this time, there became the contentious subject of whether the demon folk should be treated the way that they were in the past, as this was less of a failing on their part and more of a failing of either who their leaders chose to follow or the fact that they did not have the military power in order to resist the Demon King. This is turning out to be a much longer video than I normally do. I guess I have a lot to talk about. Ooh, pop my back. Anyways, so the subject arises about around the year 500 in the Third Era. Around the year 1000, slavery has been abolished almost everywhere except Andrea. And in the year 1243, there was a massive civil war between the two sides of this, the North and the South. I believe I gave them different names than the Confederacy and the Union. Something like the conglomeration, I forget what I called the other one at this moment. I've kind of been rambling for a bit now. But anyways, those two fought. The side of the North, the side of industry, the side of progress, won the battle. And that resulted in a lot of displacement for both the demon folk and anyone who fought in the war. And so a lot of those people started moving further west into a location called the Veiled Valley. Now we're getting into the actual story of the game that I'm going to do. So, just in case my players are watching, looking at you, Greg, just in case they are watching, then I think this is where I'm going to end the video. So yeah, like if you liked the content, comment anything that you think is worthy of conversation, and I'll talk to you guys next time, where I'll probably be talking about a rule again, or I'll be talking about story time, about something much more fun than this. as this is a heavy topic, and while there's going to be a lot of fun parts of the actual game, the base conflict of the game is a very heavy topic. So yeah, anyways, Big Bad Evil GM, signing out.